Jesus Christ. What do you got for me today?
Here's a an article that kind of blends pop culture and a little bit of business, so I thought it'd be interesting to chat about. But K-pop billionaire behind BTS doubles wealth on adding Bieber. Basically, the founder of the company that started BTS, the Korean boy band, um, they maybe a year ago bought the company that owns the catalogs to like Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande, and this article talks about how his network has blown up because their stock price is doing so well.
So did this
Recently,
guy just come in as like a venture capitalist?
uh, it looks more like a diversification play. I think a lot of his company's kind of worth was based on how well BTS was doing, and this looks like he's adding big artists to his portfolio.
Yeah, but by chance if before BTS was he in the entertainment business or did he just decide to bankroll BTS?
My impression is that it's a like an entertainment company. So this is what
It
they
is.
do. Yeah.
It is what they do. Okay. I was just I got in conversations recently about so many asset classes seemed overpriced right now.
Hmm.
And housing market's booming, stocks are booming. I think you in a previous episode you just told me Planet Fitness was up like 300% since IPO or something.
Yeah.
um I feel like everywhere you go right now, you worry about an overpriced asset class, and then you turn the radio on and someone's trying to get you to buy gold. like
Right.
um it's like, well, what's going on right now? Do you put a vault in your basement? Do you stock up on gold? Do you set the market out and see what's going to happen? If you do that, do you miss out on this bull run that might take the Dow to 50,000? Or do you buy a bunch of puts thinking that this crash is imminent? And that conversation, if you remember, parlayed over into there was someone that was like walking around New York City talking about all the vacant space, and we started talking about, well, what's the incentive for hanging on to a space that's supposed to charge 40,000 a month, and you let it sit vacant for 5 years or something? And I think we came to the conclusion that it was just better off if you had nowhere else to put money. Yeah, so much money you don't know where to put it. You just buy real estate in New York and sit on it. Even if you rent it, cool. And if you don't, it's still getting crazy appreciation for the most part, depending on when you bought it. And I've been seeing more of this stuff where, not just seeing it, but the tiny bit of work I do in the music industry, the people I know have been talking a lot about private equity kind of infiltrating the entertainment business. And our conversation was, well, why is that? And the thought is, if you got the right artist, you can attach an ROI to it. So am I better off putting $5 million into an up and coming artist, or do I buy $5 million in real estate, rental properties and or commercial real estate, and get there was a time when cap rate was like non-existent, but do I get a 6% cap on this thing, or do I roll the dice on this up and coming artist that could give me a return on investment of 25%, for example?
Yeah. I mean, speaking of trends, James, are you seeing this happen kind of as triggered by COVID? Is that the trigger for more money being poured into, or is this a longer term trend than that?
For the people I know on the music industry side, maybe not so much. I guess it's probably been going on in movies for longer than that, but I've been hearing more and more in the music industry last 3 years, probably, that you see more money just pouring into the artist. I don't think it was triggered by COVID, for example. I just think there's so much. There's people that got so much money. It's like, what do you do with it?
Right.
You start to see this template of. I've learned a lot because I was helping artists on a little bit on the music production side, mostly on the marketing side. And it's like, you see this template, And I'm not saying we want to like do cookie cutter, copy and paste, boy band type of shit. But there is a way to where money's best spent. Oftentimes that's YouTube, in my opinion, where you got to do good music first, right? You can't just do crappy music and pour money behind it and hope someone's going to blow up. The music's got to be good. But then you kind of use YouTube as a platform to get it in front of people. It's technically the cheapest place to put your music in front of somebody else. And you spend money to get the good studio time. You can buy songwriters. You can buy the best producers, as long as you got a good artist, a talented artist. And sometimes the artist is so talented they can do their own songwriting, right? And a lot of stuff they can do. But if they can't, if you got a good brand, someone's got charisma and it's outgoing, you go hire the ghostwriter. You go hire the producer. You get the great studio, and then you bring in the top-notch, people to do the video. And then you got the money to market it, right? So I can spend $2 million getting this person's album together, and it's got great beats, it's got good lyrics, and the artist is, very talented. And then I can go on to YouTube and spend another $2 million putting this video in front of people. And the next thing you know, I got an artist that's coming up and blowing up. And I think the private equity guys, the venture capital guys, got that formula now. Yeah. Assuming they can pick the right artist, and it doesn't need to be the next Drake. There's guys out there that, make a couple $1 million a year being independent. And with the right marketing and the access to the right tools, such as, I knew very talented artists that just couldn't afford to go hire an A producer. And if they could afford to do it, then they didn't have like 50 grand to go put it in the YouTube marketing to try to get that in front of. Remember the last time we actually promoted it? But what can I get for 50,000 right now? Maybe, I know it's a couple 100,000 views, maybe 500,000 views I might get. So I might be able to take 50 grand and introduce this music to, 500,000 people that never heard of this person before. And I think that's where people don't understand the power of YouTube in that sense, where I'm not just going to post my music on Instagram and blow up. It's, you got to go put it in front of people. And you think about that money best spent is, well, if I can take 10 grand and get in front of 100,000 people, and I'm just making numbers up right now, but why? That's 10,000 people that you didn't have yesterday that ever heard your music. Well, man, for the PE guys, what is 10 grand? What's 50 grand?
Right.
If they have an artist that's got the good music, where they got the good songwriting, and they got a formula, right? They know where to put the money, and now they can say, okay, I might be able to get an ROI on this thing of I might put 10 million into this project and I might get 2.5 million back. Well, that might be a lot lower risk than getting into real estate right now when people are talking bubble, or getting into, any kind of equities right now where everyone thinks they're overpriced. There might be more risk on the artist side, but I feel like there's a hell of a lot of risk if you're buying into overpriced asset classes.
Yeah. I think you hit on something important there, which is, entertainment is so attractive to private equity, or just, big money in general, because there are so many ways, especially in entertainment, for that money to come out with a positive return. So when I first saw this article, James, that $3.2 billion worth for the owner kind of struck me as massive. So I was trying to find what's driving the rise in the stock price, and their Q1 revenue was 161 million, so 30% growth year over year in Q1 revenue. But if you kind of dive into that, so yeah, right, exactly. Step one, where do you get 30% kind of balance sheet growth in this economy? It's hard to find. But then you dive into it a little bit more. Album sales are down 33% year over year, but where they're making their money is, it's called companies' artist indirect involvement sales. So selling BTS's likeness, for example, that part of the business is up 128% year over year. So almost the music part of it is secondary, which is an interesting way to look at entertainment as a business.
I mean, yeah, there's been artists that I put money behind them just to support them, not even to get a ROI. And the end goal wasn't even for them, right? I want to see them succeed. So I was like, I'm gonna help you out with some cash, and we're gonna get a plan together. Um, that wasn't even an investment, but the end goal wasn't even music. Like the end goal was, you know, getting on TV and acting or a product play. Like there's things
Right.
that was the goal, because we know that selling albums ain't making money no more. Um, I got a friend that is a fairly big time producer, and I asked him like, well, you know, from now, he's been in the game 20 years. And from now, where you're getting paid on streaming to, you know, selling albums, which way makes more money? And it's like, nah, come on, man. Like, you made more money. It seems like you made more money on albums, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you get, I forgot what it was, and this is probably a number off the top of my head, but I think you get like 5,000 to 7,000, depending on your contract and how your publishing set up. But you might get like $5,000 to $7,000 per million streams, and it's like, man, good luck getting 100 million streams, because there's so much music out there. Or you can just play stuff on YouTube, and I think YouTube's got, if they even count it as a stream, if they do, I think it's a discounted rate as a stream. And there's not the music side, like it's hard to make money on it, but you can make money on the swag. Everyone knows you make money at the concerts. Like you got to tour if you want to make big money, and then you hope you get that Coke commercial. And that's kind of where you start figuring out how to make the money. I know another producer that, you know, the primary goal on his side is, I need to get music, I need to get my beats into the hands of, you know, top artists, so I get the recognition, because no one pays attention to anyone that's not on the billboard anymore, unless you're a real fan, right? But corporate wise, and if I can get myself recognized there, then I might be able, you know, that song might get placed in a commercial or a movie, and that's where I'm going to make my money. So he's like, I might get paid, you know, $5,000 up front on my beat, and then I'm going to get my publishing. But I'm going to get more money if I can get a track that I help produce in the next Spider-Man movie. That's where I'm going to get paid. Because you start to realize how much money there isn't in selling albums, or hoping that the music you're a part of gets streamed over and over and over and over again. The money's everywhere else, but it seems to be in the music right now. It's in the movies. It's in selling products. If it isn't the music, it's when you're doing concerts. So we need, you look at what, you know, going back to the Napster days and what happened to now, that whole uprooting really changed the industry, and I'm not 100% sure it's for the better. It has given a lot of smaller bands the ability to be a grassroots kind of band and make money, but you used to be able to get paid for the music, for the art. And the only guys that seem to be doing really well are the ones that have, you know, 10 years of just music cataloged up, where they can kind of make a living off those residuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard, because you can't tour on an album. You might, I don't know, hell. But you see the people that are doing tours, they usually got 2, 3, 4 albums cataloged, right? Are you going to go up and do a tour based on 8 songs? Like, but if you want to tour for decades, knowing that that's how you got to make money now, you got to have a lot of music catalogs. So if you think you're just going to do one hot album and live for the rest of your life, probably not going to happen. These PE guys probably aren't going to get their money back. I don't know that about BTS, but I'm guessing they probably toured like crazy, because that's where the money is.
Yeah. I mean, entertainment from a consumer standpoint, which is probably where I sit here more than kind of any expertise, but it's so good as a consumer. I mean, we get access to, artists drop albums as whole albums now for free on whatever platform. Like, movies come out the same time they come out in the movie theaters, on streaming platforms. It's such a nice time to be a consumer. But I was curious, James, from, you know, you work with artists and you work with all sorts of people on kind of every level of the, let's say, the production chain. Traditionally, artists it's always popular. It's always attractive to be the singer or the the front person of the art. But are you seeing certain parts of kind of the production space or even like the supply chain of music be more attractive or less attractive because of the way kind of revenue is generated now? Like you mentioned the beats maker. Is that a more attractive place to be because you can make a bigger revenue or less revenue, or how do you feel?
I mean, yeah, that depends. I mean, that's what genre of music are you in. Like that's going to work for hip hop very well. It's not going to work probably so well for country music. But when I say beat maker, we're talking producer. Say depends who you're talking to. Everyone's got their own thing. But I think you just really started to see in the last 5-10 years where the producer has come more and more into the spotlight, where the producer was kind of in the background. It was always about the artist or the band. You're now seeing the producers get more and more and more credit. In fact, if you turn the radio on sometimes, you'll see the producer's name listed on the song featuring the artist. And you didn't really, I don't even know how much you've seen that in like the 90s and early 2000s. I had to go back and check every title on my music, but I don't remember seeing that as much, where now you see that more and more. There's a local Detroit producer that, he's the producer and it's his album and it's all his beats, right? But his name's first on that. And I thought that was cool to see everyone kind of involved in the process, right? A lot of guys I talk in the industry, they're like, oh, the magic happens in mixing. And a lot of times you just don't realize how much effort goes into an album. It's, the songwriting, which often is the artist themselves. Sometimes they have help. You see that on credits. Sometimes the producer gets credit, but you don't see like the producer in the title every single song somewhere. You got to go look for that. You'll hear a vocal tag sometimes in the beginning of the song, so the producer gets credit for it. But then there's like the mixing and mastering aspect of it. And if you ever heard a song that was recorded, and you got the beat, you got the lyrics, and you got some ad libs, and then that gets sent off to the mixer, and then you hear the before and after. It's like, man, the magic really does happen in the mixing. And you never hear the mixer get a whole lot of credit. I think some of the award shows, they will do awards for those people that do that type of work. But there really is an art to this whole package, and there's so many hands into it. Some people do their own writing and they do their own. They're the artists and they do their own production and they do their own mixing and mastering. There are people that do that. They're extremely talented and rare. But you also see the amount of work that probably goes into getting a BTS album out. Like, I don't even know, but there's probably like 50 hands in there that get you that final product, right? But it's a lot easier to do something like that when you got a bunch of money flowing in.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's, one of my friends that's a producer, he's always getting hit up. It's like, that someone wants a beat and he's like, how much money you got? And they're like $100. And he's like, no, like that's not going to happen right now. But that artist might be really great. They just don't have the funds to go get, to spend $2,000 to $5,000 or $1,000 more up front for a top-notch beat. I remember reading something like Scott Storch is going to be like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 or something if you want to go work with Scott Storch back in the day. Not at his peak, but kind of recently. And there might be a great artist that would be really great to be produced by Storch, but he just doesn't have that money. And then you got to get that thing, mixed and mastered, and then even then, no one in the world knows about it.
Right.
So you'd probably spend $25,000 to get one track out, get one record out, but you ain't got nobody to market it. So that's where you kind of see these. I'm guessing these PE guys and venture capitalists are coming and saying, okay, this guy or this band or this woman, whoever. Actually, I know someone's working with a EDM singer right now, and she's amazing. But she needs funding. Because it's hard to just kind of do a grassroots. I'm gonna do all this stuff myself and post it on Instagram and blow up. I mean, that's the story, right? But if that's the case, everyone would blow up. That was good,
right?
And it doesn't happen. Sometimes you just need the money to go acquire the resources you need. It's like a startup company. Great product or great service, but if you don't have the money to market it or to hire the people to do it, the execution fails.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, how many times have I heard a song that I didn't particularly enjoy the first time, but you hear it like 7, 8 times and it's like, oh, okay, fine. I get it.
Sometimes that's most music. Very few times you hear a song and it's like, that's a banger. It's you heard it once, that's not bad, and it grows on you. But doesn't most things, like foods, that way? I feel like I had something, that's pretty good. Next time, that was really good. The third time, it's like, oh shit, now I'm eating this shit 3 times a week. And there's very few things in life that are just instant like that. Every once in a while a song does come along that's like, oh, this is awesome. But people grow on you, food grows on you. Things just take time.
Yeah. Speaking of the money side, I thought this paragraph here was pretty interesting, talking about how it's an interesting way to compensate artists. I think, of course, it's kind of the rich get richer kind of thing. If Bieber and Grande can get shares and BTS can get shares, but access to cheap capital, via an IPO, it gives these companies an advantage if they want to start to cherry pick the artists that they really want as well.
I mean, it is cool. It's like you got stakeholders, right? You get these people incentive to make the thing more valuable because it makes their stuff more valuable, right? But
right.
The weird thing about art is, again, it's got to go back to where the artist has to be good. And you can't just throw money at art. Hey, Van Gogh, here's $5 million. Make me an awesome painting. I'm sure you could have commissioned a Van Gogh if you had a bunch of money.
Yeah.
But would we be talking about it today? That I don't know.
Yeah, good point.
I think, God, I don't know who said it, but someone just said, like, deadlines kill all creativity. And I think that, running Daggerfin on the marketing and creative side, if I came to you and said, hey, I need a ridiculous commercial and brand identity by tomorrow at 10 a.m. And you'll have something for me.
Yeah, right.
But it's probably not going to be your best work. And that's where I think money can't solve. It can't always solve the artist issue. It's the artist has to be talented, right? They have to have something. And then you give it resources. But they got the money. Now you just got to find the talent, right?
Right.
But the other issue is, does money pouring in, and this is a conversation I got in a studio one time, does the money from pouring in ruin the art? Are they able to just pour the money in and let the artist do their thing, or does the people with the money have too much influence on what it should be? And I think, sometimes some of my favorite music you've never heard on the radio. It'll never be on the radio. It's probably from an artist you never heard of. It's off a mixtape probably somewhere. Would never get played on the radio whatsoever. But a lot of times the real enthusiasts will say, well, that's where the good music is. It's not the commercial stuff. It's not the radio stuff. I can see where big money influence could kill the art. But at the same time, a lot of artists won't have the chance if they don't get the money. The EDM artist, for example, she's a amazing vocalist, for example, but she's got nothing to put towards getting a whole album put together and going record by record, making sure this thing is just produced top notch and mixed and mastered and then marketed. That all takes money, because it's fallacy to think that I'm going to get a bunch of followers on Instagram and I'm going to blow up. And I can scroll through some great artists all day long on Instagram that haven't blown up, because you realize that you got 100,000 followers, and then you put your album out for sale and like 3 people buy it.
Right.
And then you realize, well, they're followers, not fans. And I think it's easy to mix those two up. Like fans are going to buy your stuff, and it costs nothing to hit that follow button, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this person's interesting. I like your stuff, but I don't like you enough that I want to give you my money.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you see people like, hey, go stream this thing, and they still can't get streamed. It's like shit. They don't even like you enough to go stream your music for free. Like, interesting time to be an artist, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I dive into that a little bit more though, James. You touched on the idea that money influences the creative. And of course it does, but in the artists that you've worked with, have you seen that happen in real time? Have you seen kind of the way, say, an artist approaches creative change or the quality change, or just dive into that a little more?
I mean, yeah, I'm not a PE firm or venture capitalist that's pouring in millions of dollars, so I can't say I influence anything in that sense. It's, but I could see where like I was helping another artist with a marketing plan, and I'm like, look, this may not be what you want to do exactly right now, but this is what we're going to have to do to start building you an audience. They're starting at ground zero. And I think that's where the business side gets mixed up with the creative side. And I don't know if you ever see those bands that blew up in the 80s and 90s, but then once they blew up, I kind of feel like Linkin Park did this. They did a certain kind of music for a while that I loved. And then this one album came out, and I'm not into this.
Mm-hmm.
But they went from, and I'm not even saying this is what they did, but I thought maybe it was one of those moments where we did what we had to do so we could do what we want to do. And I feel like that about anything in life. Like sometimes you just got to go do the shit you don't want to do so you bust your ass for 20 years to get you some financial freedom so you can go do what you want to do in life, right? And I think that's kind of how a lot of music used to be, where I think Eminem ever wanted to do a radio song? Like if you listen to some of his like originals, like horrorcore type stuff, his stuff wasn't going to be on the radio. But to blow up at the level that he is, and to gain that many fans and a popularity, to introduce yourself to audiences that never heard of you, gotta do a radio song, gotta do a couple radio songs, Billboard songs. And that's kind of like when I'm looking at someone's first album that has really no following. You got to kind of do some stuff that's you start local, right? You do a local song to try to get some local audience, and then maybe you do a song about this topic and you market to that topic, because you got to start building an audience. You need somebody that's going to tell another person about you. You need someone that's going to post your stuff on social media so you can gain another fan. But that may not go with the kind of music you want to make. And that's where I think a lot of people want to stay pure, and they only want to make the kind of music they want to make, and they're fine not blowing up as long as they can do what they want to do. So I get that. And then there becomes the other side of it. It's like, well, we got to get you some momentum. We got to find a way for the world to understand who you are and to know who you are. And to do that, we might need to make a little bit different music for this album. And I think that's where like the money kind of, not even the money, maybe it's the business side of it, right? The marketing side says we need to do this to get you from A to B. But you also don't want someone selling their soul to do that, right? But in the same sense, if you want to get any kind of momentum in this world, you got to get some audience to start with, because everyone's not lucky to just post a song and it goes viral.
Yeah, it's true. The thing that comes to mind is like that whole starving artist thing, where, I mean, how many does the starving artist really get that much visibility? So that, I feel like a lot of the times the artists that do well typically have the most visibility too. So it ties into what you're saying, which is like money kind of drives most of it. But you got to have talent, but it does drive any level of return even.
I think if people want to be a starving artist, I always said when I was younger, one day I'm going to have kids, and I might be a crazy entrepreneur, businessman that's out there on the grind all the time. And I remember my mother saying, "Oh, your kids are going to be, just money, capitalism, blah, blah." I'm like, no, I don't. If my kids grow up and they want to be starving artists and they're happy, then cool. Like that's just my choice in life, right? And if that's what they choose to do. then go for it. And I think there's a lot of those people out there. There's someone in a New York loft right now that's just getting by, and they're painting and they're happy. And I say good for them. And even if money came along, they might not want anything to do with it because they'd want to stay true. But for people that have bigger ambitions and they want to be on a stage of a sold out arena, it's you don't want to sell your soul to do that, but are you willing to do some things? Back to does Eminem want to do a radio song?
Right.
So there's a lot of people that don't want to do radio songs, but it's that single. It's that single you got to put out there to get the momentum going. And I can see where when money in the business side comes in, they're really pushing for that because they know without that, in this world where there's so much music, it's really hard to stand out anymore. And again, if you think about everyone that you've ever talked to that thought they were going to put a song or something on Instagram or YouTube and go viral, and then you spend days hitting refresh to see it not go viral, you realize it's not that it wasn't good, it's that there's that much noise out there. I remember years ago, I went to a Speedway at like 2:00 in the morning to get probably a Coke, and this dude's just rocking out. It's like smoke coming out of the car. I don't know. Rock band, metal. I'm like, I've never heard this before. This sounds like some shit that I would go lift to in the gym. And I asked him, like, dude, who the hell is that? And he's like, that's Meshuggah or something. And I'm like, I've never heard of these guys. And at that time, I really ended up enjoying that band. But I'd probably never know who the hell they were if there wasn't some dude at a Speedway at 2 a.m. just rocking the hell out. And I always say, like, my next favorite band is out there. I just don't know who it is. Because there's so much music out there. There's so much undiscovered territory when it comes to music. So that thought of I'm just going to put out a thing on YouTube and or Instagram and blow up, while it happens, it doesn't. So then you got to go back to, well, how do I get an audience? Well, you make that radio song, you make that single, and then you market it to a bunch of people. Unless you have that luxury of just organically blowing up.
I think that's a good. This paragraph here, just kind of ending the article. There must be so much pressure on companies like this to find their next big star, and you're right, they're not going to go and back the artist that's making the song for an audience of 20 kind of thing, right? Like there's incentive on the company side to go and blow somebody up, but there's also so the incentives are aligned with most artists, at least. It's just interesting to see kind of who makes it and who doesn't.
There's a gripe about the traditional music industry that's kind of fading away, but they're a business and they're going to put money towards the people that make them the most money.
Right.
And a lot of time it's not the most talented people, or it's not the best music. It's the people that blow up on the radio. So, and then you feel like a lot of the other artists get shorted because all these efforts go into, some big pop artists, for example. Mm-hmm. But the problem is if they pour that same amount of money into the smaller artists, they probably wouldn't make as much money. And if they don't make as much money, then they don't have more money to invest in more of the smaller artists.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times it probably looks like corporate greed, and it probably is corporate greed in many instances. But I think that's no different than a venture capital firm that for every 10 investments, they need to hit an Uber one time. Otherwise, they don't have money to invest in the other 9 that fail.
Right.
And that's kind of how I looked at the music industry, as they needed someone. You need Drake to go make a bunch of money. So you got some money to invest in other people to hope they become the next Drake. In a way, like a lot of people, even you look at even the venture capital community, we don't talk about the losses. It's look how much money they made on Uber. And it's like, well, look how much money they lost on these other 20 investments.
Yeah.
Because if it was easy to just pick the next Uber, we'd all do it. If it was easy to pick the next Drake, you'd do it. And it's just not that goddamn easy. In fact, it's nearly impossible to How many times have you seen an artist come out and you're like, wow, this is it, and then they're like a one-hit wonder, and it's like, oh, you came really fast and you went even quicker.
Yeah.
It happens in business, happens in music, it happens in movies, sports stars, one big year, right? And it's like, man, it was that easy to say who's going to like continue to be successful for the next 10 years and make money. Dude, we'd all do it.
Yeah, and I bet you can probably draw a through line back to, like you said, the bands that are already making money probably will like, that's probably why some bands last forever. Not a function of like how great their music is, just the fact that they already generate a return, and let's just keep putting firewood under the thing that's burning.
As long as they keep producing music that people want to buy or they want to tour. Elton John's coming around, and I got a suite for Elton John, and I think if you just buy a ticket for the audience, I think it's like $300 or something. Again, someone that's got probably 50 years of cataloged music out there. But when you realize how much a concert ticket costs now, it's going back to that thought of there's not a whole lot of the money is a facilitator to do the concert so you can make money at the concert. And
yeah.
Like without the live, we know the money's in live performances, but you got to be performing something that people want to see. So I think that's just a pinch of you. Again, you're not going to get rich on one album. You're going to have a catalog of music that you can sell swag and get your music into movies and get your own podcast show or get a YouTube series or get a TV show, or you just tour forever. Like you see a lot of these classic rock bands, and it's like 5 years ago was the final tour, and then 2 years later it was the final tour. And then they couldn't do COVID, but this year it's the finale before the final finale. And because they're making that much money doing the live performances everywhere. So I'm sure as an artist you enjoy doing that, but I don't want to be like 75 years old touring the world. I mean, maybe they want to. I don't know. Or maybe they're getting 10 million a show. I don't know.
Yeah, you could. I'd sing the same song for 50 years if you give me a couple $1 million. No problem.
Yeah, too bad you can't sing.
Yeah.
I got nothing else on this one. Not even sure I heard a BTS song before, but definitely an interesting perspective. And when you think about the fact that's even on Bloomberg Wealth, you start thinking about that, right? We're talking about this. But when I've had so many conversations in particularly last 6 months, when the market started to go crazy and real estate started to go crazy. It's like, people are worried about losing the wealth they accumulated now. And it's like, well, where do I put it? And I feel like every time you say that, the TV is listening and then a commercial comes on, hey, buy gold. But it's like, where do you put stuff right now where you hope to get, the magic number is 10%, right? But we know in this market, that's a low number. But if you got 100 million or you got $1 billion and you already bought up all the New York real estate, what do? Yeah, you put it into artist.
Yeah. Yep. Great conversation. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, I'll catch you.